Hello, 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 and welcome to the next episode of the Shane Walsh podcast. So, if you aren't aware, I have written a book called Break Free 7 Strategies to Get You Away from Yo Yo Dieting. So, the book will be out. There is a release date, and I'll release that in a few weeks. There's a few little fine tunes and stuff like that. So, that will be out kind of towards the latter end of the year, kind of the last quarter of the year. It's all finalized, all set to kind of go. Really, really excited. The messages that kind of came back when I kind of announced it last week have been amazing. So it will be available kind of towards the end of the year. So keep an eye on that. It'll be able to be available to pre-order shortly. As just kind of trying to kind of get the little bits of the fine tuning to the little bit of artwork and stuff like that. So the little perfectionist to me is kind of at play. So if you're new to the podcast, welcome. If you are watching for the first time on YouTube, welcome. If you're not watching this on YouTube, please head over to the channel Shane Walsh Fitness and you'll be able to watch YouTube. A couple of client episodes coming out in the next kind of few weeks that will hopefully show the work that some of my clients have been done. One's been with me for 3 years and one's been with me for 2.5 years. And the work that they've done and the mindset changes they've gone is mind-blowing. So I'm going to talk to you today about something that a lot of people that I work with on a daily basis struggle with. And at some point, dieting stops being something that people do to lose weight, feel better, get healthier, and more about kind of who we are as an individual. Because what I've noticed, and I don't know if most people notice, but it starts to become a little bit of an identity piece. And I think that a lot of us don't know or necessarily think that most people are ever noticing that they're actually this has actually happened or is happening to them. Not in the moment, not in the present, but it's not the diet itself. It's not the meal plan itself. It's not the calories or the workouts or any of that. It's something far, far kind of quieter for you. And it's at some point in your dieting journey, dieting stops being something you do and it starts becoming something that you are. You identify yourself as the yo-yo dieter. And I don't mean that in a dramatic way. It doesn't happen overnight. There's no moment where you wake up and think, oh, I've suddenly become this person. It's way more subtle than that. And it's built through repetition, just like building muscle. It's built through repetition, through experience, through disappointment, starting over 52 times a year every single Monday, and you stop questioning it. So before it feels like it's a kind of a preachy thing, let me explain what I mean. Think about the first time you ever tried to lose weight. It could be as a teenager, it could be brought to a Slimming Club. I've had clients been brought to a Slimming Club at the age of 8. You probably had a goal. You probably had a plan. Maybe there was this element of excitement. I'm finally going to get my stuff together. A sense of this time will be different. And for a while, it probably was. You were motivated, you were careful, you were paying attention, you felt in control. And then life happens. A weekend came up, a stressful day happened, a moment where you're tired, don't care as much. The kids got sick, you got sick, something small breaks that rhythm. Nothing dramatic, but just enough to slightly pull you away from what you're trying to do. Instead of actually being in that moment in the process, it becomes the beginning of the story you all know too well. I've messed up again. I've gone off track. I've fallen off the wagon. I knew I couldn't stick to it. I'll start again Monday. And this is where I normally trip up. They're all sentences. But I want you to actually challenge this. If you're going to say to yourself, this is where I normally trip up, you have told yourself it's going to happen already because we don't believe that we're actually capable of doing it. And this is where something interesting starts to form because you just don't experience the setback. You interpret it. And over time, those interpretations start to kind of add up and start to stack up like bricks, like phone credit, one by one, until eventually they form a structure around how you see yourself. Think of this like as an example. Imagine you're starting to walk through a forest or you're going for a walk up the hills or whatever it might be. At first, there's no real path, just grass and trees. You start walking in a certain direction. Every time you go that way again, the grass gets a little bit more flattened, a little bit more defined, a little bit easier to follow. Now imagine that direction is I fell off track. I lose control. I always start again. And at first, sometimes it's just something that happens. But over time, it becomes the path you walk without even thinking, because the one that feels most familiar, it feels safe. And feels and that's what identity really is. It's not what's true, it's what's been repeated. So let me give you another really, really good example. Think about driving somewhere new. The first time you go, you're focused, you're checking directions, you have your phone open with Google Maps, you're paying attention, you're unsure, but the more you drive the same route, the less you have to think about it. You don't even question the turns anymore. You just arrive. Now imagine your thoughts about dining on the same route. At first you question everything, but over time the same thoughts get automated. This is where I fall off. This is where I lose control. This is where I lose routine. The weekends are where I fall off plan. This is where I restart. I start every single Monday. And now you don't even consciously decide anymore. It just happens. It's automatic. It is nearly as automatic as breathing. And this is where it gets really, really tricky. Because once something becomes a little bit more automatic, it stops feeling like a choice. It starts feeling like a personality. It starts to feel like, this is just me. I'm just someone who struggles with consistency. I'm just bad with food. I'm just an emotional eater. I'm just a yo-yo dieter. But that's not personality. That's pattern recognition gone unchecked. It's not on your passport. It won't be on your tombstone. And I want to slow down here for a second, because this is important, because most people think the problem that they have with weight loss is effort, more discipline, laziness, etc. Knowledge. Most people don't have a knowledge problem. They have overwhelm problem, 100%, because there's so much information on social media. I think there's something like 70 or 80% of people get their nutrition knowledge off TikTok now, according to a study from Dublin City University. But if effort was the issue, you wouldn't have made this far in your cycle, because you have tried harder. You've tried to control further. You've tried to restrict harder. You've been more motivated. You've restarted more times than most people could ever tolerate. So it's not effort. It's what happens after effort. It's what happens when things are no longer perfect. Because that's the real turning point. Not the plan, not the start, not the first slip, not the first bad day, not the first weekend where things go how you imagined. That moment is where identity gets reinforced or rewritten. And for most people, without realizing it, it gets reinforced, because the internal dialogue starts to kick in. See, told you so. This is where I mess up. Told you so. Told you. This is what I always do. Told you. Can't trust myself. And once that thought appears, everything after it follows the same direction. It's like being on a train that slightly changes track. You don't notice it immediately. It starts to feel like you're moving forward, but over time you realize you're heading somewhere completely different other than when you're intended to go. And the frustrating part is you were still on the same train. You just didn't jump off. You just didn't quit the approach. And you just got redirected by a small shift you didn't notice. And this adds up over time and starts to beat yourself up as that you are weak, that you are the problem. And it becomes personal. And I want you to tell a story that I see all the time. Someone starts a plan on a Monday. They're motivated, they're organized, they have their food shop in, they're all in. Meals are prepped, workouts are scheduled, everything feels aligned. And for a while, a couple of weeks, it starts to work. Motivated, scales going down, feeling calm. And then the first weekend comes. Trip away with the girls. Hen. Wedding. Friday night out. This is where a lot of people will freak out. And then Friday is never just Friday. It's exhaustion from the week. It's all decisions all day long. It's, I just want something nice. I deserve a treat. One, you're not a dog, so you don't deserve a treat. And suddenly the plan bends. Maybe a takeaway, maybe a few extra snacks, maybe just a break from being good. And what happens next is what defines everything, because it's not the Friday that causes the problem. It's not the weekend that causes the problem. It's the next meal. That's where the identity really speaks. Well, I might as well fuck it up. I might as well ruin everything. You either weigh in after your night out just to check the damage, or did you get away with it? And then you tell yourself, well, I told yourself I was going to ruin it. But if you drank a glass of water, the scales will go up. Does that mean you've ruined anything? Or you just had a glass of water? Because the scales measures gravity. It doesn't measure your self-worth. But because you have gone on the scales, or you've told yourself, oh, I might as well continue now, I might as well wreck the whole weekend now, I might as well start the week, I'll start Monday. But that lie that you tell yourself every single Monday or every single Sunday evening, or that last supper syndrome where you try to get the foods out of the house because this time it's going to be different, it's not. It's like me expecting my hairline to come back. It's not coming back. And just like that, one moment becomes a full cycle. That 52-week cycle where you kind of start over every single Monday. Not because of food, not because of willpower, not because of motivation, not because you're not disciplined, not because you're weak, not because you can't lose weight, nothing. It's because of interpretation. And if you zoom out, this is what most people are living inside. Not a diet problem, a pattern problem, a meaning problem, a self-worth problem, a story they keep replaying about themselves. You don't rise to your goals. You fall to the level of the identity you've rehearsed the most. Let that force sit for a second. You fall to the level of the identity you've rehearsed the most. That's going to sting. You fall to the level of the identity you've rehearsed the most. Because it explains more than people actually realize. And I want to be really, really clear here. This isn't about blaming yourself, because blame and shame do not start the engine. They do not get you to go anywhere. They keep you stuck, paralyzed. They do the exact opposite. Because if this is a pattern, then it can be changed. If you've learned it, it can be unlearned. But not by trying harder, not by trying to white knuckle, not by restarting again, but not by adding more food rules in, not by adding more calories in, not by adding more control in, not by trying to go 1,200 calories, not by intermittent fasting, not by believing some hormone protocol, but by interpreting the identity that keeps driving the cycle. Because right now, for a lot of people, the identity sounds like I'm someone who struggles with consistency. And every decision gets filtered through that. Even the good ones, even the strong ones. Because part of you is waiting for that fall. You're expecting yourself to fall. So when it happens, you're like, told you, almost expecting it. It's like you're watching your own progress with one eye closed, bracing for impact. You're almost like you're expecting to cross the road and get hit by a car. Every single time. But imagine for a second if that wasn't the identity. Imagine if instead the identity was, I'm someone learning how to stay consistent. And consistency will be different. There will be times you'll be more consistent, and there'll be times you need that flexibility to have that weekend away. I know myself, consistency looks different for the next kind of couple of weeks. 2 weekends away coming up. But consistency for me is, what can I manage? It's getting my regular meals in. It's getting my training in. That's it. Not perfect, not finished, not transformed. Just learned that this is what works for me on different weeks. That changes everything. It removes me from the process. It removes me from, I am the issue. If you actually wrote out on a piece of paper, I even got an Excel sheet. If you're someone who likes data, get an Excel sheet and mark it as a calendar on an Excel sheet. And mark on the calendar how many meals out you've had with either an X or color it as a green box or whatever it is. Okay. Now zoom out across the whole month. How many colors or how many X's are actually on your Excel sheet or on your calendar? I'd be surprised if there's even 15% of your total meals for the whole week or a whole month are out. So you're saying that 15% means that you've fallen off track when 85% is giving you feedback. Meals out don't derail anyone. And this changes everything. If you're someone visual, do that exercise. One negative day isn't a collapse. It's data. It's not a restart. It's continuation. It's not I failed again. It's this is part of the process. You have to learn how to have a life. And that shift, that small shift, is what changes everything over time. Not intensity, not pressure, not more control, not more restriction, but interpretation. Because you can follow the perfect plan with the wrong identity. That's easy. And still end up in the same cycle. But can you follow an imperfect plan with a new identity and slowly build something completely different? So what I want you to bring back down to is not the version of you trying to get everything right. Not the version of you planning for the next restart. Not the version of you that's been living inside of for this cycle for a while. I want you to ask yourself honestly, what label have you accepted about yourself when it comes to food, your body, or your consistency? I'm someone who. I want you to finish that sentence and don't rush it, because whatever comes after that sentence is probably driving more of your behavior than you plan, than any 6-week, 8-week diet that you're ever going to go on ever will. I'm someone who emotionally eats. I'm someone who is a yo-yo dieter. I'm someone who struggles with my weight. I'm someone who overeats in the evening. I'm someone who stress eats. I'm someone who boredom eats. I'm someone who doesn't look after himself. I'm someone who, they're the things. They're probably driving your behavior because they become practice. They've practiced them more than you've practiced anything else. Than you practiced the guitar when you were a kid. And maybe the real work isn't changing everything about what you do. And maybe it's actually starting to question what you believed about who you are. Because once that changes, everything else has changed too. Has room to change. I hope that episode has helped. You don't have an ability issue. You've lost weight before. There might be feedback of, when you ask that question, what label have you accepted about yourself when it comes to food, your body, or consistency? I'm someone who. Finish that sentence, and it'll be interesting to see what comes up. How do you identify yourself? Thank you so much for listening to the episode. Thank you so much for your help, your support. And if this episode has helped you, subscribe on YouTube to watch the podcast. A couple of client interviews coming up in the next kind of few weeks from their journeys who've challenged this. And if you've enjoyed it at all, please do tag me up on your story. But thank you so much for listening to today's podcast.